Well, it's time to cross the T's and dot the I's. The rest of the week's top stories. Joining me now, Fox Business Network's Lori Rothman, Fox News contributor, New York Post columnist Michael Goodwin, and Executive Director Public Notice, Gretchen Hamel. So let's start with this whole story about executive privilege. Florida Senator Marco Rubio, he called into the radio show this past week and had a strong reaction to the president's executive privilege. Senator Marco Rubio is our caller of the week.
I think we're now starting to that there is something here they're covering up. I mean, there's certainly something in those documents they don't want us to know about. They don't want America to know about.
Well, they don't want us to know about something, and all of a sudden it becomes okay. Now it's like wet paint, don't touch.
The cover is always worse than the crime, right? Let's just get those documents. I have to say, I was wondering, did the president just look at the economy, the stalling economy, the unemployment crisis, and basically just say, nothing's going my way? Maybe the whole idea of a second term is, so I'm just going to go ahead and do whatever I want, invoke this executive privilege, and just say, you know, and go out.
To take the topic of the economy off the table? Because we're all talking about executive privilege now.
Perhaps, and we know that if this thing, you know, is probably going to go on and on past the election. So, yeah, there's probably that idea of strategy. But, again, you know, do you think that he's looking at the economy and saying, oh, it's just in the doldrums and everything I've done the last 3 years hasn't worked. I have one more year, so I'm just going to. And you can also kind of apply this argument to the immigration, his circumventing Congress to enact the immigration laws.
What do you think, Michael?
Well, look, Marco Rubio's point about there's something in there that they don't want the public to see, that there's some reason to hide it, that I think is a logical conclusion to what looks like a bizarre decision. In other words, if there is nothing in there important, why not make this deal, even if you think that they're being intrusive, if you're Holder, you think Congress is being intrusive and too aggressive, a fishing expedition, okay, make a deal to target some of the documents. But they seem to be under this mindset, we're not going to give you anything, or if we do, it's only in exchange for you shutting down the investigation. Well, that's a deal nobody in Congress could ever make. So it does seem to be something here that nobody has really thought of or seen, that the president is willing to stake his own reputation on it.
And Gretchen, I don't think a lot of people really know the whole story, but Fast and Furious, everybody agrees, a giant mistake. It was bungled, it was horribly handled, and we have a dead border control agent along because of this. So what they're looking for is the documents after a document that was sent over that turned out to be false. So all they're looking for is, did somebody stomp on the whistleblowers over at ATF, it seems like. Is that your read on this?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it seems to be. And there's a lot of problems here with this Fast and Furious story, and I think more Americans know about it than you actually think, especially those on the border states and some of those in critical states that the president must win. But there are a few different things here that we need to look at and the president needs to consider. One, he's committing to Holder here. Now, the Americans might not like that. Based on that, it seems like he's hiding something. This is also in direct contradiction to what he said back in 2007 when President Bush used his executive privilege. He said that, well, the administration must be hiding something. He also said that he was going to treat this, his administration, when he was then Senator Obama, would treat the other branch of government as a co-equal and give them the utmost respect. And this is not doing that. And I think Americans are going to see that and question the president on this. But at the end of the day, nothing gets in front of Americans' minds more than the economy.
Yeah, he promised transparency, too. President, let's move on, because we got the president's policy not to deport certain young illegal immigrants. Very popular, according to some polls, but those polls are now being questioned. Doesn't seem to solve anything, Michael. This is the problem, is that, as I told Congressman Schweiker, if I was a young 25-year-old illegal that was brought here by my parents, I don't think I would come out of the shadows. This is so temporary.
It's a very strange thing because, as you say, they have to come and present themselves to the government, identify themselves, gives all kinds of information about themselves. That's one thing. On the other side, you have a government bureaucracy that really is not equipped to handle this right now. So there's going to be a big ramp up of a bureaucracy. We know what that always entails is lots of money and lots of mistakes and high degree of inefficiency. And as I understand it, too, the immigrants will not be given a piece of paper that is in effect any kind of a document that they are now permitted to work, that it's going to be electronically held by the government. So it just seems to me to be a lot of high-risk bureaucratic issues involved here. But I think the president is not thinking of any of those things, right?
No.
This is purely a political maneuver, and I do subscribe to the fact that he did this simply because he did not want to be behind Marco Rubio. He didn't want to give the Republicans any issue. He didn't want to take away from his own strength among Latino voters.
Gretchen, it's not well thought out because, again, if I was a young illegal and I had to come forward and I had to then basically bust my parents, I'm not going to do that because now I'm told they're not protected by this.
Absolutely. There are some questions here that a lot of people have in their minds, but let's remember back in 2007, 2008, when the president was running for election, he said that immigration was something that he was going to tackle in his first year. He made a lot of promises, but of all the promises he kept the one on health care. Now, you also have to think about the hypocrisy here, and I think a lot of Latinos see that. Here's a president who is pandering to them, and they know that. They're talking about it. They see that. On one hand, he has talked about how he has deported more illegal immigrants than the past administration, but now he's saying that they can stay. So they're kind of like scratching their head, wondering, so really, what's your position here?
Try and have the political cake both ways. All right, let's get into the big issue of the day. Some states are not requiring cursive to be taught in schools anymore. Do you?
Yes, they must learn proper handwriting. If you cannot write cursive, I equate it to illiteracy. I'll tell you why. An example, I got a thank you note via email this week, and I was offended by that. It's easy to type on a keyboard or swipe the iPad.
Yeah.
Kids learn that inherently because these gadgets these days, we're surrounded by them, right?
I've got to tell you, I'm going to bust my senior radio producer.
Oh,
He's a well-educated, late 20s, Rutgers graduate. He doesn't know how to write cursive.
Right.
Because he said in high school they typed everything.
Right.
He forgot it. He was taught it, but he forgot it.
This is clearly the wave of the future. And look, I think education in general is kind of stuck in this technology trap. On one hand, we're still, by and large, teachers are still teaching in front of blackboards. But as Lori said, every kid comes in first grade now knowing how to work every gadget there is. So I think the whole education world is upside down, and it's lost the fundamentals about you may not be able to teach everything on a blackboard, but certainly kids should know how to write in cursive.
I'm with both of you. Lori, Michael, Gretchen, we got to leave it there. Thank you all very much. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your chance to win at